Da 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 da. What's my good cheer? Welcome, welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes, get those notifications out. If you've never popped into one of my lives, hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and the little giggle for me tonight is 1 minute before the end of the day. I show up. But it is in that consistency that, I am showing up. And it is not in procrastination. I have just gotten into the habit now of closing off my night. And for lots of you, because I am doing my podcast so late, you're either staying up and I'm keeping you up, or you're starting your day and you went to bed early and you're up now and you're on the move. And if you're on the move, I hope you have a very productive day. And that's what I would like to talk about a little bit tonight, because I had a really busy couple of weeks, and it wasn't stressful or anything like that, but it was just busy. I just felt like I was cleaning out my life, not just cleaning out my closets, you know, getting ready to do a garage sale and stuff, but that idea that I'm changing, that my life is changing, that my surroundings are changing, that it is noticeable, very noticeable to me. And, I have this plaque on my fridge and it says, stay grounded. Today I was just going to flake out. After the last couple of weeks and the yard sale being over, I was just going to flake out. And I had laundry to do, and I said, "Well, there's nothing. I'm not doing anything anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. So I'm flaking out. I'm not doing anything." Ended up doing 6 loads of laundry up and down to the second floor, doing laundry, tidying up, getting things sorted, sweeping my floors, taking care of the cat's needs, and I'm just like, I'm not, Cindy, relax. Like, totally freak out. And I was so excited, actually. And I felt like it was a little bit of reward because I was in that mode, because I not only did laundry, I like tore my bedding apart, and I had this, what I thought was a duvet. Sometimes you come across brands and you just fall in love with them. For me, growing up in the low income class, living on brand and living in quality was a treat. It was a celebration. It was a special occasion. It wasn't something that was every day. And one thing about working in a little thrift store that I got to notice is that, it really is kind of nice. And there is a really huge difference in good quality brands. A brand just can't be carried by its name. It has to be carried by the quality of the product that they're, sending off. And I got attached myself to a couple of brands. One of those brands, well, you guys all know if you've been hanging out with me for any length of time, I am a big Keen shoe fan. Winter boots, summer sandals, creek sandals. Oh my goodness, walkers. I just love the Keen brand. I think it's such a good quality brand, cool looking, outdoorsy, and at the same time, very well suited for people who really want to take good care of their feet. Now, this isn't a commercial for Keen, but I just wanted to mention it just so you know, like when I happen onto a brand and I love them, I love them. I found a pair of Keen boots at the thrift store. They were practically new. I got them for $5. I was so excited. I wore those things down, got them in on went into them in October, and I stayed in them until the end of May. And it took me 4 years, but I didn't quite destroy them, but I knew I was coming to an end. And my sister says, "What do you want for Christmas, Cindy?" And there were two things that I wanted, right? I wanted another pair of these Keen boots that I couldn't afford, but because I got hooked on the quality, right? Right? It would be nice to have another pair of those boots. They were amazing and so perfect for somebody again that's taking care of their feet or getting into their senior years and they're looking for a good, easy, reliable boot to take off and on. If you're asking, it's the Avalanche and they make it for men or women. It's such a great boot. Take a look at it. It's not a commercial, but back to the idea of quality. The other one that I came across is I got a quilt at the thrift store, and it was an IKEA quilt, and it was kind of a thermostaty one where it's made it so if it's summertime, it's really cool, but in the wintertime, like it's big and fluffy and it's really nice, right? But I'm very particular about my blankets, and the blankets, the air has to move through them. And again, that coolness about the quilt is what got me. It just in the summertime to be able, right, being a highly sensitive, being an empath, we want to feel safe. And one of those feels about feeling safe is feeling cozy, right? Right? We like the fluffy, we like to be contained in our big blankets, but that's not really making any sense when it's like 90 degrees outside. But the thing about this IKEA quilt, and I wish I'd give you the name of that one. Not you're probably glad I'm not. I give you the name of that one too, but it's some big Swedish long name that starts with an S, right? Couldn't pronounce it if I tried. And I wore that quilt out. It was used when I got it, but it was in pretty good, decent shape. But I fell in love with it right away. And when that quilt died, and again when my sister said, "What do you want for Christmas?" I said the Keen boots, right? Because they were a little bit cheaper than the quilt, because the quilts were almost $300, right? But well worth every penny. But who would think to spend $300 on a bed quilt? Lots of people do, but it's not my nature, right, to do something. And I just happened onto the brand. I just happened on to good quality and really got a wake up call in that, right? And so I wore that quilt and I didn't want to part with it, right? It was perfect, but it was all ripped up and it was done. So I got a little cheapy quilt and I got a duvet cover for it so it would look nice on my bed. And but there was no airflow to it. We're in the summer now, and right, I felt like it was in a sauna, and I was so missing my my um my IKEA quilt. Well, just before I quit that job, brand new in a package came an IKEA duvet, right? And it had the low temperature, but it had a picture of the thermostat on the packaging. And it was in a package like this, not very wide, about that wide. And but it was a duvet, and I thought, oh, at the very least, I could switch out my duvet. Maybe that will help me stay cooler, even though the quilt is not breathable. Be better than what I'm doing now, right? And I totally forgot about it, and I put it in my closet. When I was doing my yard sale, I noticed it was brand new in the package, never been opened, right? And and on the back it said it was a queen size duvet, and I went, oh, I'm going to put this on today. I'd already stripped the bed to do laundry and everything. And getting back to what my sister said, what do you want for Christmas? I said the boots, but the duvet or the quilt was on the list. I wanted a new quilt because I had wore my quilt right out and I had to throw it away, and I was unbearably hot in the summertime without that specific quilt, right? I got kind of attached to a good brand. So I opened up this package and I'm looking for the seam to put my quilt inside of it. It's a duvet. You put your quilt inside of a duvet, right? And I can't find the seam on it. And as I'm looking for the seam, this thing is puffing up. This thing is puffing up. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, this is not my quilt, is it? This looks like my quilt. This looks like my beautiful quilt that I wanted so bad from IKEA, but I couldn't afford it. And I got the Keen winter boots instead, which I was very happy with, right? And I looked for the seam and this thing's puffing up. And I looked at the packaging and the packaging did say duvet. And I'm thinking, well, maybe it's just cleaning instructions because it said duvet underneath the cleaning instructions underneath there, right? I said, I don't know. But this sure as hell looks like my quilt to me. And so I took it down to the laundry room because I was doing laundry anyway. It was out of the package, but this package was only like this big. But as soon as I took the packaging, like the plastic packaging off it, right? I guess it started puffing up. I would never, for returning it, I would never have been able to get it back in the package. It was a good thing that was there. Said I only paid $5 for it, you guys. It was a $300 quilt. I remember researching it when my sister asked me, give me the Christmas list. She was the millionaire in the family, right? So give me the Christmas list. And I put that quilt on the list, just maybe. Said, oh, the Keen boots or this quilt. You got to be specific, right? So what a miracle! It was brand new in the package, like brand new. I am in shock because that quilt was only thrown away maybe 4 months ago. And 4 months ago, I said, oh, right, my beautiful quilt is gone. I love my quilt. And just before I left my job, which was 4 months ago, that package came in. But I only thought it was a duvet. I didn't think it was my quilt. So tonight I'm sleeping with it for the first time. Feel like it's a little gift. I feel like it's a gift. But the reason I'm telling that story is I did feel like it was a gift. It really cheered me up because on my fridge is that sign that says stay grounded. And I was having a hard time staying grounded, but because I was having such a busy couple of weeks, I was staying grounded in that busyness of getting ready for the yard sale and actually doing the yard sale and going through my closets and cleaning my house. And my house is almost spotless, corner to corner. Got this wall, I'm doing this tomorrow. That's tomorrow's project, I promise. I'm the only one who has to live with it. And it's not bad. I just almost did it, but it's the one with all the ornaments. So this one is the one that's right. You got to take all the ornaments down, dust the ornaments, dust the shelving, wipe everything down, put it all back together. But because I'm going for that fresh, that new beginning, right? That this in the background has to change a little bit too. How I don't know, right? I know my pictures are staying on the wall. I know that much. But at the very least, it'll be clean and tidy and feeling like a fresh start. And yeah, pretty amazing. And you know, that benefited me in staying busy because today, right? I couldn't sit still because when I sat still, I went into my contemplation. I wasn't online too much today. I wasn't taking the lessons. I was staying in the project. I was trying to relax. I was trying to enjoy my day, but get ahead a little bit. But because it was just me, right? And in doing that, We talk a little bit about being your own worst enemy, right? That's about as bad as it gets for me, is because then I go deep. I go into that noisy me kind of thing. I kind of do reflect on my situations, and maybe, I go into that hopelessness state where I'm going, how is it even possible that anything good could come into my life? Look at the situation I'm in. And then all of a sudden, oh, I need a fresh log. Like, okay, today's the day. I'm going to have a good sleepy tonight. Today's the day we're going to put that quilt in that duvet bag, to find out that it was the quilt that I wanted so much. I don't even have to I don't even have to guess how well I'm going to sleep tonight. I'm going to sleep absolutely amazing. Right? It's not even another secondhand quilt, thrifted quilt. It's brand new. Pretty amazing. And it cost me $5. A $300 quilt for $5. Pretty incredible. There were lots of benefits in that job. If that had come across my path, I wouldn't have marked it $5. But you know what? If they mark it $5, I'm gonna, right. I like thrifting. I like a good score just as much as anybody else. And if I come across it, and I have come across great scores, right? You hear me all the time. These are my beer stat. The lighting's not really good in here, but these were so dirty when I got them. They were yellow from cigarette smoke. They're from like the 1950s. They're like 2.5 feet by 3.5 feet. There's something like that. And look at the scenery in those. It's not just the scenery. I love Mother Nature's. I love tree. You can see this wall. Everything is trees. But the idea about this, when I was researching the artists, I fell in love with them. I had no idea. They were so magnificent. They managed to stay in the store for 2 days, and I just couldn't take it anymore. They were on display up by the cash register. I was working. I couldn't concentrate. I was going to be heartbroken if anybody got them except for me. I didn't care, right? I said I'll paint the frames, but instead I took scouring pads to them and spent in total, I think it was about 5 hours, 3 hours on the first one, the second one in 2 hours, because I kind of got in the groove on cleaning them, between $500 and $1,500 a piece. The artist, Bierstadt, is actually a German artist. He actually traveled with Lewis and Clark, one of the very first explorers in North America. And he'd do these sketches and then he'd go home to Germany and he would paint them. And his work was renowned. And very rarely, because you always hear the term starving artist, most artists are dead before they become famous, right? Lots of them did not do well in their art. No matter how much they believed in themselves, they never did well. But Bierstadt was an entrepreneur, and he was an artist who did so well for himself. And other artists were disheartened by that. And at that period, there were lots of great artists climbing that ladder, or trying to anyway. And to have that rubbed into your face, to see somebody succeed in something that you're trying so hard to succeed in, also, uh, they tore him down. They discredited his work. They actually discredited his work. They actually had his work taken away from. There's a group where you strive to be a great artist and you're considered a master if you're included. And he had it taken away from him because all the other artists were just always complaining and putting down his work and picking out all the flaws and everything. They said he was just too majestic. They said there was no way there were sceneries and landscapes that looked like this in real life. And we proved these are actual scenes. These are these are the Hadas of the Northwest Pacific, and this one, I think this one here is actually Yellowstone, right? These are magnificent, important landscapes in North American geology history, and yeah, it got reinstated, but like 20 years after he died, he got his master status reinstated, and his pieces are, I don't know, worth a little bit now. Five, these are prints. They're not paintings. They're prints of his work. And while the size of them is makes them valuable, a little bit more valuable, but his work is well sought after. And I got them both, the pair, for $12.50 with my little staff discount. They are worth between $500 and $1,500 each. This one up here, I love just as much. I love just as much. I didn't buy any of them as an investment. It just happened to be. I just have a good eye when it comes to art. I think so anyway. Right? One day I'll take you over here and see my Mother Nature wall. It's been cleaned out pretty good. But I saved all my all the pieces, all my wood carvings. I saved them all, and that wall needs to be redecorated. But yeah, we're gonna work on this one tomorrow. Okay, thank you so much for letting me jibber jabber there today. I just right, I'm trying to unwind, but I find that my mind goes places, my emotions kind of go places, and and it's because I'm not being grounded. And so I find if I stay busy in what I'm doing, uh it's much easier, right, for me. But sometimes you're called to, right? So much of where I'm at right now, where I'm sitting right now, it wouldn't have happened unless I had allowed myself to meander. Oh, that's a nice word, isn't it? Meander. I was meandering rather than compulsing, right? And stewing on things. How is meandering? But right? I could easily. That's why I love my job so much, right? I only work part time there, and then I could work full time doing this. My job was enough to keep me grounded, right? Because I used to make jokes after my days off. I go, "Oh, I'm so happy to go back to work." I says, "I feel like I'm holding on to a bouquet of helium balloons. I could just float away. I could just float away, right?" And that is true. But I was doing it today without even being in the content, right? I couldn't even. The content was there if I wanted it, but I just wasn't absorbing anything. So I might as well have just turned it off and just right had the nice quietness. Even went out for 20 minutes. I just stayed busy all day. We're going to try maybe relax a little bit, but I already promised myself we're working on this wall tomorrow, but we'll see how it goes. Okay, you guys, let's pick a card. Just a couple of minutes. First perspective, first thought that comes to my mind, and then we're going to call it an end of a day for me, maybe a start of the day for you, right? But I hope it starts on a good note. I hope you're grounding well in the things that right that you're happy to be grounding in, right? I was grounding in my own thoughts, and that's not always a good thing to do unless you have a project in store, and I should have, right? But I have been in little projects for the past few weeks, planning my camping trip, getting the garage sale done, cleaning out all the corners and nooks and crannies. I cannot believe that I personally filled up 2 pickup trucks with all my crap. I had so much, and it still looks full. Still looks the same. But it's much lighter. It definitely is much lighter. Okay, you guys, let's grab a card here. And the card is trust. You know what, you guys? This really has been on a topic. When I said that, I just kind of turn off everything and I just get into the things that, I need to get done around the house, whether it's, um, uh, wiping things down or doing the laundry or cleaning the closet or figuring out what to do with my spare space, moving the furniture around. These are just mindless things for me in the moment to ground in because I needed to stay busy. The plan today was not to do anything, but I couldn't trust that I could just sit there and do nothing. That I could just because my brain, like I said, was meandering, was and I couldn't trust that it would stay in a happy state. It would stay in a state where I could whistle while I work, that I could be optimistic. I didn't even want to work on my camping trip, and that's always a good one for me when I'm feeling off in one thing that I'm doing that I know I could just jump into that project and I could right, just work on that in that creation of that gift that I give to myself every year. But I had been into my mind for the better part of the day and I had already put myself in that state of, is it possible that it can even work? Right? What am I thinking, Cindy? You don't even have a job and you're planning on going on vacation. You could use that money for more important things, some things that you could help move you forward. Right? It's such a little amount. Like I create these little holidays for myself because I want to give that to myself as a reward, as a gift, even if I really didn't accomplish lots. But I know it's important to me to enjoy my life, that this is the one shot that I have for myself that, I'd given my entire life. Or at the very least, I didn't realize that I could give to myself. And I'd like to give that to myself. If I give nothing else, just if I could just give myself that one little holiday every year. And so, when I have those moments when I'm just tired of everything. I just don't want to be into that already. That I can switch it up and I can go into that mode of that creation of that gift for myself. That it always cheers me up. It always makes me happy. It always gives me that optimistic idea. And I always come out of it going, oh my goodness, of course I'm going on that trip. But I did not do that today. Today I went into that a little bit, not a lot, but enough for me to notice that noisy me, right? So what are you saying what does that have to do with the trust, right? But this is part of what I'm doing, that I have to be able to trust that when I am in that state where I just want to be in the silence, that I do want to be just in my head, that I can trust that I'm doing it in a way that it's going to benefit, that it's going to be a project, that things are getting done, and that I'm not just putting myself into a corner where it's black and dark and sad when it doesn't even have to be, when it shouldn't be, right? When it isn't. And yet sometimes, right? Sometimes we talk ourselves into those states, and that's the truth, right? But back to this word trust, that's the whole point of what we're doing so that we can start trusting ourselves, right? That we can just kind of let go and flake out, go brainless and just enjoy the landscape or whatever we're being entertained by in the moment. But then I say that, and then the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh my goodness, and get hooked on video games or a television show, and then again get pulled away from the things that do well by me, right? Like those connections to Mother Nature, like those trips that I create for myself every September. Well, where instead I could have gone and buy video games or video units. I don't play video games. I'm using that as an example, but I could do so many silly things with that, right? But I could do so many great things with that. I just wish that pile was big enough. So I make as big as I can out of the little that I have. And it makes me happy. And I whistle while I work while I do that. And I feel accomplished when I come out of that, right? But that trust to be able to do that and know, right? That I'm not neglecting myself, that I am, right, not putting myself because I'm not paying attention, that I'm not putting myself in a state where I'm digging my own hole. Or I was going to say it, so I might as well say it is reward myself undeservingly, right? And so I look into kind of these things. And then when I do that, right, I put myself in that state. And that's not where I want to be. And that's where I go when I'm not grounded, when I'm not staying busy in things that help me move forward, that make me feel good, that put a smile on my face, right? And I have a few things that do that for me. And I'm getting better and better in trusting that when I get myself in that state, that I could just switch it around and just, right, put myself in one of those other little projects that keep me grounded and at the same time keep me moving. And like I said, keep a smile on my face, keep me smiling, keep me wanting to keep doing what I'm doing. And in doing that, that's where the trust is coming in, right? Because I'm trusting that that's the direction, that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and that's what's making me happy, right? Hope that makes sense. I'll come back and I know it will make sense for me 100% because lots of times we don't trust ourselves, right? That's It's not that we don't trust others, but we don't trust others because we don't trust ourselves. And we can't trust ourselves. What are we doing trusting other people? And this is how we think, and then we end up isolating ourselves and we miss out on great opportunities. We miss out on an opportunity possibly to let ourselves get into a state where we know that everything is going to be okay, right? If you knock off and go to sleep, that somebody will tap you on your shoulder and not steal your purse, right? What did I write here when it came to trust? Trust is being willing to let go of control. Do we live in a world that we can 100% do that? If you can convince me that I can just let go and all the things that make me happy, that all the things that I set my goals and I move towards, and even if it's struggling stuff, that I get to recognize that I'm doing that. Right? Yeah, that's a little bit controlling in that, right? But I am willing in lots of ways, but not in all the ways, right? It's an amalgamation and an assimilation for me. It's not one over the other, right? Because one can't do without the other, and that's the truth, and that's something I've always known. I really, really, I've always known, and yet I didn't believe, I didn't trust that I could believe in that, right? And again, it's in that practice, right? That we can learn to let go a little bit more, that we can doze off and trust somebody's going to tap us on the shoulder and wake us up and say, okay, time for bed. And it is time for bed, you guys. Have a great night for me. And if you're just starting your day, heading off to work, I hope you're having an amazing day, right? Trust everything is going to be okay in the end. I know lots of us, put our own selves in those hairy scaries and those marathons, and we compete with ourselves because we have nobody that we think that we can compete on the outside, right? But if you're competing with yourself, I hope you're kind to yourself. I hope you're whistling while you work. I hope you're smiling while you're doing it, right? And I hope it's a good sportsmanship. Okay, you guys. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.